They said that I had to sit in the middle.
Of course you do. Yes, yes, yes.
See that?
And Kevin, I don't know what you're doing with your hair, but I love it. It's
I started the day with a full head of hair. It's
Yeah,
been that
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of day.
I bet. Well, thank you all. I hail from the rural state of New Jersey, and I'm happy to be here, simply because I haven't had power at my home since last Friday. So it's nice to be in a place where I can charge up the cell phone and lay in bed and hold it.
And touch it 2,000
And touch it 2,000 times. My goodness. Patty, that doesn't sound very good. Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, so please join me in welcoming two great people talking about the equality advantage. I'm looking forward to this session. I took some notes earlier, and I'll share with Kevin and Patty. But first of all, Patty Morrison, she's the Executive Vice President of Customer Support Services and CIO of Cardinal Health. I think you live in Chicago, but work in Columbus.
Correct.
And travel around. I think your husband
works in
Boston, of
yeah,
course.
We're nomads.
That's how it works. And then Kevin Bandy, an old friend of mine of maybe 12, 15 years ago. Kevin's a Senior Vice President and Chief Digital Officer of Cisco. So we kind of have a big company perspective here, which we want to talk about the equality advantage. By having equality in our workforce, by driving for that, what advantage does it create? Patty, maybe we start with you. You've been in business a while, as have Kevin and I, and in technology particularly. Mm-hmm. What has that experience been like?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here.
Certainly.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's been a great conference. I would say, first of all, I have a liberal arts degree. Is Paul still here? I mean, I'm the STEAM. I'm that A in the STEAM. So, I ended up in technology because the one thing I have found that has really been important to my career in technology is having a true north. Like, what is that one thing that drives you? And for me, I like solving really big, ugly, hairy problems by applying technology to them. And now I'm in healthcare, and there certainly are plenty of problems to solve. So I think that's something that's always motivated me, and to learn technology for how it can make things better for the companies that I work for the employees that I work with, for our customers. So that's really been part of what I've learned in my journey.
What changes have you seen that are significant that you'd share with the group?
Well, around gender equality, I think when I was early in my career, there were a lot of women's groups that were very much just women. And it was getting over hurdles of women supporting women. Today, what I see is a lot more men engaged. You two are good examples where they're driving change at a gut level, at an emotional level, not just a business level. And I think those are all important. At Cardinal, we have a CEO, Mike Kaufman, who's personally committed to gender equity. Mm-hmm. He sponsored our Women's Initiative Network for several years, and it was a learning experience for him. And we've taken that to create something we call Partners Leading Change, which is recruiting one man at a time to really be engaged in moving women forward. And hopefully that will be a flywheel. There aren't enough men who make this a priority, and that's something that we're very committed to.
That's great. Thank you. Kevin, Cisco has been in the news lately around the progress it's making around gender equality. Tell us about the systems engineers and the aspects of your systems engineering group in trying to reach a 50-50 balance within that organization.
One reason why I chose Cisco, and I think you and I spent some time talking about this at one point in time, is when I was brought to the West Coast, I actually chose Cisco because it had such a diversity in its women and men leadership. And when we started looking at that, Bob, we started realizing that we were teaching and trying to influence women to code, but we weren't making enough change directly within our own 25,000 engineers. And so when Chuck took over, he took a very concerted focus of how do we bring people from outside of engineering into engineering, and how do we take engineers out of engineering. And so we realized that we had to begin to cross-pollinate talent across the company to begin to achieve our goals. And we found that very enlightening because we started to see the education from cross-functional development really accelerating our diversity efforts. Mm-hmm. We saw our engineering mindsets have a material influence in marketing and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So I would tell you that the big thing that we realized is we weren't having the diversity conversation correctly. We were having it very focused on a number versus what is the internal conversation of how do we actually share the experiences across the company. And that was very, very enlightening for us. And since then, we've actually taken it from points of seniority, as Patty talked about. We now grab early in career women and have them mentor men, and vice versa, because we realize if we start that conversation early enough, we're controlling the future of our destiny. And certainly in engineering, that has been a male-dominated element. We're applying external hires directly into engineering more. We're starting investments in the Cisco Connected Academy, which teaches the networking skills we need, which takes high school and university students and blends them directly with their own engineers so that we start sharing that. We have to control the diversity earlier, not just at the point in which we recruit. And that's a big, big shift.
So you would be a big fan, proponent of the statement that gender balance promotes a freshness, a drive of innovation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That conversation has to run constantly.
Yeah, Patty?
Yeah, one of the things that we found, we created an organization we call Fuse, and it's a commercial technology group that does DevOps and innovation. And there is no one in that group that associates themselves with I'm in IT or I'm in HR or they're fusers. And we recruit pharmacists, oncology nurses, people with payer experience, because they all care about solving problems for healthcare. And I think that environment has been very empowering to women. We've been able to attract a lot of women, even women who might have been hesitant about becoming developers and becoming engineers, and giving them that environment where they can learn and feel supported in that process, because everyone's different, and you can really tell the difference in that type of a
Could you broaden that, Patty, a bit and talk about what Cardinal Health is doing overall to create an environment for women and men, but women particularly, to thrive?
So we do several things, and there's a lot of range of examples, but our Women's Initiative Network has been doing a lot of broad things in the company that range from influencing our recruiting policy. You know, like we have a requirement to have a diverse slate, not just gender diversity, but diversity general for every single open position. And we work with our recruiting organization to make sure that we can source those types of individuals. And it's not easy. If you're, recruiting for a senior level position, and I heard recently, well, we had 20 resumes and they were all white males, and that's just not acceptable. That gets sent back, right? It's a proactive work. And that came out of the women's group really advocating for that. They do a lot of things just to support women across the board. They run events. They have one coming up I love, which is for married couples within Cardinal. Some of them are Cardinal marriages, and they're doing a panel on dual career paths and the challenges of dual career paths. So the other things that we do are all the way down to encouraging women to come into technology. For example, we support Girls Who Code events at Fuse. One of my favorite things that we did was you all have Bring Your Kids to Work Day.
Sure.
At large companies.
Yep.
Bob brought me a few weeks
I
ago.
brought Kevin a couple weeks ago. Kevin, I still have some questions here for you.
What can I say? It's the haircut.
Let's be careful. Let's be careful. You're not that big of a client yet. Come on. Come on.
I knew there was a sales call.
Patty, please continue.
Well,
Don't let these men, kind of do that thing they do.
A couple of our really empowered men, they suggested an event during Bring Your Kids to Work Day. And they had a session where they could bring their daughters and talk to women in technology. And I find when I go to engineering schools, for example, that you ask women, what has inspired you to tackle engineering as a profession? And many of them tell me their fathers. So, even tapping into that kind of core of, how that man in your life, early in your life, is influencing, and that man is an advocate for you. How do we bring that into the workforce every single day? So those are some examples.
Thank you. Kevin, would you share on Cisco on a programmatic level?
Yeah, first I'm going to just build on something Patty highlighted. Is once you actually start the voice of the women, we actually found that year on year we actually learn if we studied what we learned last year and applied how much we actually learn year on year, we were advancing the conversation exponentially. But I sponsor the Cisco Empowered Women's Network. And one of the things, Patty and I were talking about this earlier, is what we realized is we were having the conversation only within the halls of Cisco. We weren't actually, what do we do to influence our partners? What do we do to influence our customers, our developers, people that extend well down the Cisco culture? And so I actually raised my hand, and just, she said it earlier, we had a woman-on-woman conversation or women-to-women conversation. And I said, where are the men in the conversation? And so I raised my hand and I said, I'll go sponsor that. Because if we don't influence this conversation collectively, then all we're doing is just sort of collaborating around the pain points.
Yeah.
And then the other piece that I said, Bob, is I said, we can't admire the problem. We have to actually continue the discussion. So we actually use Cisco technology for all the women that participate in that. We now maintain a 12-month running dialogue where we will identify things that may be macroeconomic, political. We'll put it out there and sort of grab their feedback because we want to understand how that's happening. That's had a material influence for us to accelerate our learning and then begin to take a far more proactive position in it. And when we were doing things just as you were talking about from a number perspective, you know, I just came from a meeting, 50% of the executives were women sitting at the table. We value that participation, but we have to start there with our hiring practices, give them a voice. And so we actually are now taking early in careers and we force them to actually participate. Force may be a hard word, but we encourage them to get so active in the conversation early. Don't confuse age with your right to participate. And that is it's bringing more people to the table than I could ever possibly account. It's highly rewarding.
Patty?
You know, Bob, let's talk about women at the top, because it's kind of creating the pipeline. We've been talking about this for a long time, creating the pipeline, and yet there's still the pyramid, right? When you go up and look at the percentage of women in top positions. And so we're never satisfied, with where we are. But, actively helping to create women who are ready for general management positions. We have 2 women who are presidents of business units at Cardinal. And, how do we create more of that capacity? And so, helping women take lateral moves to get them ready, helping them career plan and career path towards that. Because how do you know what are the skill bases that they have to do? That's something we also are really actively doing. So that's incorporated into all of our talent management practices. I know the dialogues at the executive level are very much about how do we reach into the organization and get these women ready to take leadership positions in Cardinal. And we're great at our senior levels for women. We have very active women on our board of directors. So it's always been really important to us, but we're never done.
Great. Thank you both on that. Go ahead, Kevin.
There was something that, I read your report on the flight in last night, and there's something that I think is taken for granted, and it's the word parity. And the Valley has a very strong stereotype around unbalance. And so when Chuck took over, one of the things that we collectively said is talent does not discriminate. And therefore we shouldn't either. So we literally put forward a very aggressive pay parity effort. And although we started in North America, we quickly realized it paid forward so rapidly when we ran it around the globe. And so we now try to leverage our efforts around pay parity as a means to extend that conversation into other companies. And what I value about this conversation right here is it's 3 large companies that we have to take the baton and extend that conversation out, because you can't let small companies carry the weight of big companies. We have to do our share to actually draw attention to that. And we started very focused on parity.
Good. Maybe you have a competitor in a place I'm going to talk about here in China. Maybe I'll share this with the group. I shared this statistic the other day in another meeting. There are 400 million millennials in China. There aren't that many people in the United States and Canada. So you start there. Every time I go to China, I have a dinner with my managing director team. There's 10 of them. 5 are women, 5 are men. I mean, other than when I look at them, there is no difference around their behavior, their activity level, their energy, how many shots they do. Ceremonial
How many
shots
Mai
in China.
Tais?
Ceremonial shots in China. Ellen just fell out of her chair here. But it's factually true.
They do like to party.
They do.
They do like to party.
But what's
be
really interesting is I sat at a meeting at Alibaba. So what we're saying here is there's this equality advantage. What we're saying here is gender balance helps drive innovation. There's 5 MDs that are women, 5 MDs that are men. I sit at Alibaba with the Eric Schmidt, if you will, of Alibaba. Not Mr. Ma, he founded it, but the Eric Schmidt there, the adult running the business. His name is Daniel Zhang. Daniel Zhang has 3 women to his right, a man to his left, and 2 more women. On my side, I have 1 man to my right, 2 women to his right, and 3 to my left. There were more women in that room than men. Do you understand the advantage? Now, there's all kinds of socio-political, economic rationales that I go through why that picture is what that is. And so much of where we are in life is where we came from. And fundamentally, they came from a different place than we've come.
Mm-hmm.
But if we all believe what we're saying here, that's a huge advantage. And it isn't because they work hard, it isn't because there's billions of them. It's because there's a level of equality and participation in what they're doing that's going to matter. It's mattering today. So I think sitting here in Silicon Valley, where last year at exactly this time, the Atlantic magazine, we all saw it. It said, why does Silicon Valley disrespect or hate or whatever the word was, women? And there were 3 technology women or 4 technology women on the cover. It's part of what motivated Accenture to bring this event here this year from where it's historically been for us. Our national program, our international program has been in New York. But how shockingly different that is.
You know, for large public companies, one of the things I do in addition to my role at Cardinal is I sit on 2 public boards.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for boards to be as proactive as leadership teams in large companies to really understand, you just heard us talk about Chuck or talk about Mike or, you know, talk about Pierre, people who believe in this, who are engaged and they're, you know, coming at it from that strategic place. For boards to really ask that question in CEO succession, because it matters. The point of view of the leader really does make a difference in creating that advantage for your company, and you're going to perform better.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, I know the boards that I serve on, that it happens all the time, but I hope it will happen in more boards.
So you've been in a drug distribution warehouse.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. I used to build drug distribution systems for Accenture, for companies like Pfizer. I remember clear as a bell, I had a project team in the back of a warehouse in 1994. Ellen was around. And in 1994, the big discussion with a team that was 50% women was, could they wear pantsuits? We're in a warehouse. I mean, there's little mice traps all over the place. We had little space heaters keeping our legs warm, the men and the women. And the big debate was, could they wear pantsuits? Now what we're talking about is, on the third leg of the stool there, creating that environment where you can be you. But it's not that long ago we're talking about, could they wear pantsuits? I mean, it's really amazing. Anyway, I'm getting old.
You always feel like
No, you know.
when you look forward.
He was on a tangent. Let him go.
I was off. I was going to start tomorrow's speech. I've got another one tomorrow about something else. But yeah.
One of the things I
Patty.
love to think about is when you're moving forward, it feels like you're only moving in inches.
Yeah.
But when you look back, you see the miles that you've covered.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for equity, even though sometimes it still feels like it's a slog to go forward.
But see, that's why I was saying that we had to realize we had to have the conversation daily if we were going. Otherwise, we were just contributing to the problem.
Yeah.
And when you have it on an annual basis, you sort of celebrate the event, not the conversation, not the effort. And so I think bringing it here as a response to what you saw last year was a great opportunity to change the conversation.
Yeah.
To realize, wait a minute, this isn't ours. It's as Accenture's to solve. This is ours collectively to go solve. And somebody said, "Thank you for being here." I said, "I wouldn't have missed it."
Yeah.
This is the conversation that we have to go have, because the diversity is, I'm a big team-based manager. Diversity is what makes a team thrive in any sport. Unless it's an individual sport, then it's just the superiority of that person. But in this case, you're superior to Bob and I. But I find that I take so much from the conversation, the more diversity I have in my team, I become a better person. I become a better leader. If I can infuse more and more diversity of all different levels of experience, and you said it earlier, it's not just male and female diversity, it's diversity as a whole that we have to have that engaging conversation. I find that to be one of the most rewarding things that I can do as a leader.
So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball. Thank you, Kevin. A bit of a curveball. Artificial intelligence. We heard Paul up here earlier, our CTO, talking about it. Does it advantage, Patty, either gender?
I don't think so. I think technology is an equalizer in many ways. I mean, I think that artificial intelligence, as it's trained by populations, that the biases can transmit from one to the next. And so we have to be mindful of that. And I think maybe even more so when you're trying to create capability with anything from robotic process automation to machine learning and all the variations of artificial intelligence, that teams have got to be diverse in their thinking and creating those products so that it represents the truth. It represents the way things really are versus their own biases within the team, and that they're going to have to be very conscious of that. But I don't think it biases one way or the other, honestly.
Kevin?
I don't. What I find is, so I echo everything that Patty just said, but I find that when you apply AI, we become far more proactive at redefining what roles should be, that we also begin to become far more proactive in redefining the talent that will actually bring success to the conversation. And I can tell you today, early stages, we've started using AI across the company to actually find where diversity isn't being applied to roles that we're posting. So we're actually using that so that we don't have 25 or 20 white males show up. We're literally, how do we bring the talent that may be hidden because it's under a different job description, a different role, different function to the table? And what we're finding is that we're going to be redefining our job profiles every 24 months. So we're really using AI as the equalizer to bring talent to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I run customer service. So when you think about artificial intelligence applied to service agents being replaced by chatbots or anything like that, I mean, what I find is that my service agents can be much more innovative and creative in thinking about how they can automate their work so that they can move and learn and do something new. I mean, the demand coming into us is, outstripping our supply of capability to meet that. So whether you're in a SOC and you're doing cybersecurity, or you're doing customer service, or you're doing accounts receivable, how do you empower those organizations to learn how to apply artificial intelligence to make it a better experience for the customer? And it creates opportunities for that.
Great. So we're wrapping up. I'm going to give you each just one statement topically relevant to the group. Kevin, I see your forehead's turning red, so I assume I'm getting a suntan as well. The lights are kind of bright here.
I didn't have a chance. I came from New York. I didn't have a chance to get my self-tanner on. So.
All right. Well, then it is the lights. Yeah. But share with the group one thought around the equality advantage, gender balance. We're in it together. What would that be, Kevin? And then we'll let Patty finish.
I'm sorry, it was the harassment. I didn't quite hear your question.
Patty, we'll let you start.
Your last thought.
Yeah, your closing thought, please.
My closing thought is, I'm going to go with what I've been sharing is each and every one of you, I hope that you're not just sitting here just looking for others to carry this conversation. This is our conversation. So each of us are a sphere of influence to go have a material impact on every individual that's out there. Doesn't matter if they're in high school, late in career. So understand the power that you represent. Don't just admire what we're saying, understand your power.
Thank you, Kevin. Patty?
Boy, I would build on that. I think for each of you, go recruit in the next month 2 men who are going to be engaged at a gut, emotional, business level to help women move forward. If you have a husband, that could be one of them. What are they doing in their workplace to advocate for women? If it's one of the people on your team, build that. But that's the flywheel that I think is really the change now that we can see that's going to make gender equity happen.
Let me finish with one thought, because I always enjoy hearing that women have 3 sons or 2 sons or whatever. I grew up in a house of 4 boys. Our gender balance was when mom came home. Very homogeneous area of Pennsylvania, truly a rural state. You could say that I grew up insensitive to many things with 3 younger brothers. You push each other around, you don't really solve things, you're a little rough-edged, you don't really get what mom's saying all the time. But I benefited greatly on 2 levels. One, my mother worked. And so that was a model. Now, it was a traditional job. She was a nurse, but she worked. And that made me something. It made me think. It made me curious about it. The other thing was I didn't have a sister. So there were no traditional roles in the house. I did the dishes, my brother did the laundry, I mowed the lawn, my brother did this. So that's not the wife's job. It's my job. In fact, I love to cook, partly because my dad was horrible at cooking, and my mother often worked at night. But what I did do is I came into the work world as a rather insensitive guy, never ill-intentioned, just insensitive. And I wouldn't be where I am today, as Kevin, you said, and Patty, you reemphasized. We're in it together. And it's the women in my career professionally that created the sensibility and the sensitivity in me to be the professional I am. It wasn't some guy, it was a bunch of women. Ellen still helps. Julie helps. All right, so it's no, Patty, you're now helping. So it's why wouldn't you be? So so we're in it together. Let's work on it together. I want to thank Kevin. I want to thank Patty. Great panel. Thank you so much.